Now if you followed me on Twitter or watched some of my older videos, you'd know I'm a big fan of games like Medievil. I grew up with Medievil. I think it was one of the first games I ever played, or at least it was one of the first games I could remember playing when I was a child. And while the game aged, pretty poorly, I still have fond memories of it, and I really enjoyed playing the remake that came out last year. Now, with Medievil, I really do want to see a new Medievil game. I would love to see the second game get the same remake treatment as the first one, but I would love to see a Medievil 3. Now, Medievil isn't as popular as something like Crash or Spyro, so, it can be a bit 50-50 regarding if we're going to get one. But sometimes on occasions you will see developers get inspired by these old games and make something else, like A Hat in Time is similar to Mario 64, and A Hat in Time is a phenomenal game. And if you haven't played it already, I don't know what you're doing. But earlier this year, my friend sent me a link to a Steam page for something called Pumpkin Jack. And it was this hack and slash platform again. It looked like a PS2 title, but it had a very strong resemblance to Medievil. So obviously I was quite interested in it. And I've played the original demo that was out then, and I've played the more recent demo that came out during the Steam Demo Festival. And the quality had improved a ton, and it's still improved into the final release. But I think this is important to mention now because Pumpkin Jack is a really good game, and if you're a fan of Medievil, it is a game worth looking into. But on the most part, this game was made by one person. And while that's not an uncommon thing, there are some games that are just made by one person, the amount of quality that went into Pumpkin Jack is bloody impressive. I didn't really encounter any bugs when playing through it. I think I encountered two, one being an issue with the minecart which he fixed, and then another being in the castle level where I managed to skip the second vehicle segment and I could just wander through, which was nice so I could see how much effort and detail had been put into the map, which was surprising considering how fast you'd go through it. But overall, this was a really solid experience. And I mean, it has RTX support, it has ray tracing. It was a really bizarre thing to see from the Nvidia Twitter saying, oh, these are all the games that have ray tracing, and it's stuff like Call of Duty, I think Cyberpunk 2077, and then just in the bottom left corner you had Pumpkin Jack. And I mean, I don't really get the point of ray tracing. I've had it on certain games, but I've never really noticed a difference. But the fact that this game has it is just like a little achievement on its own. So similar to Medievil, Pumpkin Jack is split up into levels. You don't have a free roam and you don't have an open world. It is a straight linear game. And there's about 6 levels in the game. Now on Steam, when people asked about the length of this game, he always said it would take roughly just 6 to 8 hours to beat. And I'm not going to debate that. It really does vary depending on your playstyle. But I played through the game and I got all the gramophones and I got most of the crow skulls. And it took me roughly 4 hours to complete. Now, that's not a problem for me because I did enjoy pretty much the entire thing, but I know for some people the length being short is going to be a bit of an off-putting point, especially when the price of the game is roughly around 30 quid. But I think for the 6 levels you get a pretty good package. Now, personally, I would have liked this to have been at least 8 levels. I think 8 would have been a good, round-up level, but the 6 levels you do get, they are fun to play through, and they're all quite unique in their own way. Each will have little mini games where you have to play as just the pumpkin head, which have their own puzzles to them. But then you also have an event in each level. Something will happen that only happens in that level. You'll have a vehicle segment. You might have a minecart, you ride a horse. There's a race at one point, but no level will ever really feel the same unless you talk about the combat, and that's about it. The combat itself, I'm a bit 50-50 with. So, playing the original demo compared to where it is now, the combat is a hell of a lot better. But my original complaint with the combat was, I didn't like how you would just kind of slide and lock onto the closest enemy to you. Now, a lot of games do this because, obviously, it's a 3D environment, and if you're trying to do melee attacks, sometimes you might miss, and it will be a bit too precise and you can get yourself screwed over. But I feel like in the game of Pumpkin Jack, a lock-on button would have worked better than just having it instantly lock and slide. Take Medievil for example. In that game the melee is just fully free, you just have to run around and hope to swing near them, and I know some people think that's a bit jank at times, but I think it would have worked better in this. As for the weapons themselves, they're pretty, straightforward. You've got a shovel, a scythe, a magic sword that can talk to you, a shotgun, and a magic spell to do with crows. Yeah, the shotgun was a bit of a surprise for me as well. The weapons do feel good. I don't know how much of a stat difference they have, but you can easily swap between all of them and just use what you enjoy. And obviously with New Game Plus, once you beat the game, that's the idea. I think they even say that on the Steam forum somewhere. It's like, oh, you can just replay it and use the weapon of your choice. There's no negative to using them. I think it is more just a personal cosmetic preference. Similar to how if you get the crow skulls, you can then buy cosmetics. Like I have the skeleton outfit, because of course. For the bosses, I don't want to go into it too much because this is a short game and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but the bosses themselves, while simplistic, are actually pretty fun to play against. Sometimes they will have a little difference to them, so you can't just go and attack them, but no boss in this feels like a pain in the arse. That's a good thing though. It's not too simple like something like in Crash, but they're not overly complicated like a Dark Souls game. You could at a stretch say this is like a basic Dark Souls, but I would probably slap you if you did. The best I can put this is, if you played the original Medieval or the Medieval remake and you wanted something like Medieval but with a new IP, then I think Pumpkin Jack is going to be the closest we're ever going to get to that. I would love a Medieval 3, hell I would go as far as to say I think Pumpkin Jack deserves a sequel. It is a good game. I think if the developer branched out a bit and like formed a company, hopefully from the success of this game, if this game does well, form a little company, like a team of like 4 to 5 people, and then just sat down and went, okay, let's make a sequel to Pumpkin Jack going from the ending of the first game, because it does leave it on potential for a sequel, and just go from there. I think Pumpkin Jack could be a little series that, while not having many games, could get a bigger and better sequel? Hopefully? I mean, I'd like to see a sequel to Pumpkin Jack. And hey, if you want to make a Kickstarter for it, I'd happily throw in 20 quid.